Welcome back to the Relius Reviews. Today's review is focused on Dave Season 2, Episode 9, entitled Enlightened Dave. And the official synopsis of Enlightened Dave is: Dave journeys to a legendary recording studio hoping to break through his creative block, but is forced to confront his greatest obstacle, his own ego. And I would have to say, without a shadow of a doubt, this episode was weird, especially in the second half. This episode got weird in a second. And I would say that this is probably the second weirdest episode out of the season, besides episode 3. But cool episode, but still weird at the same time. But here's my episode recap and my episode review. So the episode starts off with just scenery and imagery of just naturey things, such as trees, flowers, plants, all kinds of things. And then we see Dave walking up to a house where he is going to try to figure out why he's having a huge writer's block, and how he can get back into recording music and everything. And so for a little while, Dave doesn't find nobody in the house except for a painter who says that every time that somebody comes through, they have to repaint the house to help that person start off fresh. And then it seems as if that we're about to meet Rick Rubin, the legendary producer, but it turns out it is an actor by the name of Biff Whiff. So Dave and Biff Whiff talk for a little while until a guy named Adams come, and Dave goes with him. Adams and Dave, they talk for a little while just about different things such as life, what they want out in life, like why Dave is here and everything, as Dave thinks that he is going to meet with the producer of Rick Rubin. But then the two continue to talk all the way until nighttime. So then it is nighttime. Dave, he's back in his room. He decides to call his friend, Benny Blanco, who y'all remember from a couple of episodes ago. And their connection is not all that well. So then a lady comes in where Dave has to write down some of his biggest fears and worries that he has, and then bury it somewhere around the property. So then the next day comes, and Dave is talking with Biff Whiff again, and as well as Adams, and he drinks this special potent drink that's supposed to help him out and everything. And then Adams is like, he needs to go inside this flotation tank, which will just help him clear his mind and everything. And so Dave at first is just a little bit skeptical about this flotation tank, but then after a little bit more talking with Adams and Biff Whiff, he goes inside the flotation tank, and we see Dave just seemingly just having just different thoughts and emotions just going through his mind about Kanye West and all that kind of stuff. And then Dave thinks this isn't working. So then he gets out, and then a freaking small go-kart starts to follow Dave, telling him to go follow different directions. And then we see freaking Dan from the very first episode when Dave, Mike, and Gata, they were all in that other country filming a music video with that foreign pop star. But this time Dan is wearing army clothes, and it seems as if like he is in the army now. Because if you remember in the very first episode, it was discovered that Dan never enlisted for the army in his country. So he may be a part of the army now, but he still has that broken laptop that I think he broke in the very first episode. And he talks about how he had to eat it with ketchup and everything. He pisses on himself, and how Dave is just like how he always laughs at that kind of stuff. Dave, he starts to freak out quite a bit. He tries to help Dan, but then when he goes into the kitchen, the water is not coming out. He opens up the fridge, spoiled fruit, which is, to me, it gives out meaning in Dave's life. Like, that's what I think happens. But then, long story short, Dave is in a busy kitchen somewhere at a restaurant with Gata and Els as chefs. And long story short, there's no meat. So then Dave going against his. So then Gata is just like, he needs to cut him for meat. And Dave is extremely against it because he is not trying to cut up Gata for meat. But in long story short, he cuts up Gata for parts of meat and says that Gata tastes good. So then a couple of hours later, after cooking with Gata and Els, who was doing his own thing as a chef of cooking his own food, the food comes out in preparation to many different Little Dicky fans, and they all enjoy the food. But they all want more for whatever reasons, and Emma is in the background recording, taking pictures of Dave and everything, and Dave is just like, you need to stop this right now. But Emma is just like, nah, I'm not stopping anything. Like, you need to get these photos and video footage and all that kind of stuff. So then it goes to another downward spiral where we see Dave talking to his mom, explaining how he wished he had more time. And then it jumps to Allie, and it seems that he's talking to Allie now about having more time, being a different person and everything, just wishing that he had different things with her. But then Allie, she really doesn't say anything important. But then it goes to another segment where Dave is talking to like his alter ego self, I assume. But his alter ego self is very creepy looking. He's bald headed, no facial hair. He's not even wearing underwear. He's wearing something. He's wearing some undergarments. And they have like a long discussion about Dave, his life, his ego. And it definitely does get heated at some points. And Anteater comes out of nowhere. And then this alter ego of Dave starts playing just different sounds, just like different music that Dave can possibly make in his mind, which Dave enjoys. He tries to get, but then the alter ego of Dave is just like, this is you. I'm already in you. The conversation happens. It takes a weird turn where both of them is drawing up water. And then it is discovered that Dave was in the flotation tank the entire time, with Biff with and Adams just freaking out, thinking that they didn't put Dave on a t-shirt for being in the flotation tank for so long. But Dave, he gets out of there in a hurry to record music, and he records one of the songs that his alter ego had recorded. And with Biff with watching in the background, that is how the episode ends. Like I said, I thought that this episode was very weird in many different aspects during the second half, with Dave just having those different scenes and segments of just many of the characters from this season, and him possibly breaking his own writer's block with him making music. But I thought it was still cool and everything. Some of my favorite things that I enjoyed about this episode would probably have to be the different segments of just Dave in the kitchen with just Gata and Els. Him cutting up Gata was definitely weird, in my opinion. And then the scene where Dave is just giving out the dinners of Els's body, of just Gata's body parts, his hand, part of his arm, Emma recording, him talking to his mom, Allie. That was all just insane and just weird. And him just talking to his alter ego was just crazy, to say the least, but just how they did it. And he looked creepy as well, with him being bald headed and no facial hair. Like, it was just extremely weird. But I think this episode definitely did help Dave confront his own ego, because throughout the entire season, Dave has had like a huge ego of some sorts, and it just came back to like bite him in the butt quite a different times. And I think that it was good that they finally confronted that, and he finally realized what was the problem in him recording music and everything. But I would say that he is definitely going to have an album out by the end of the season. And I think that now Dave is going to be different because of this crazy experience that he has gone through with the flotation tank, him going to Rick Rubin's house, Biff with Adams and everything. Like, this definitely helped out Dave in the long run. But out of all, I enjoyed the episode. Weird at the same time. Maybe the second weirdest episode to say the least. But until next time, goodbye.